Hey everybody, welcome to Ned Rocks, the Nedcast. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to talk about building materials. Now, I know that seems a little strange, but, well, it's what's been on my mind lately, so I guess that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so, there's a product that's available. It's called Tyvek, and it's what they call a house wrap. Now, the idea behind Housewrap, it's kind of interesting because the idea behind Housewrap, the reason for it has changed over the years. I mean, they used to say that it was to prevent air leaks. That was the original reason that they put in Housewrap. As an aside, I'm not an expert on building materials by any stretch of the imagination. Almost everything that I know about this is just stuff that I looked up on the internet. So feel free, if you disagree with me, think I'm an idiot, etc., etc., feel free to leave a comment, shoot me an email, ned@nedrocks.org. Yeah, but okay, so although I'm not an expert, my understanding is that the original purpose was to prevent air leaks, and so you'd put this stuff, so if you're building a house, you'd put this stuff over the outside of the house, the exterior portion of the house, which would prevent air leaks from getting in, and, it'd save you some money on your electric bill, which is always a nice thing. Now, so Tyvek is this material that DuPont came out with to use as a house wrap, and it's a really interesting material. It's essentially a paper. It's not woven. So essentially, rather, paper is just strands of cellulose, usually from wood pulp, but occasionally from cotton. I mean, cotton is almost 100% cellulose, and the paper that they print money on is actually made out of cotton, from what I've heard. But anyway, so paper is just, you take these materials and you these strands and you press them together into a sheet. You don't actually weave them, so it's not like there's a regular pattern the way there is with woven materials. It's not like that at all. It's completely random. So, and Tyvek is made out of a plastic called polyethylene. So there are these long fibers of polyethylene that they've spun into fibers and that they've pressed into a paper. And that's basically what Tyvek is. And this does some really good things because, so paper, of course, gets wet. And when paper gets wet, it'll actually wet and it'll soak through. The wonderful thing about polyethylene is completely hydrophobic. So it'll repel, water just forms beads on it. It doesn't soak into the paper at all. So it's hydrophobic. But okay, so that came to another justification for house wrap, is that they were saying, well, why don't you put this on the exterior of your house and it'll protect your house from the rain. Some rain falls on your house, and that's not good because it could cause, especially if your house is made of wood, it'll get in there, it'll cause wood rot, and that's just not a good thing. So, keep everything dry. And so, one of the really interesting characteristics of Tyvek is that, so just like with any paper, there are little holes in it, like filter paper. I mean, if you want to make coffee, you pour a filter, you pour coffee, you put your coffee grounds into hot water and they'll form the coffee, and then you filter the grounds out using a filter paper. At least that's the way we make coffee in the United States. I've seen some really interesting ways of making coffee in other countries, like Turkish coffee. Really cool stuff, but that's for another video. Okay, so just like filter paper will allow the water, the coffee to go through, Tyvek also has these little holes, but the little holes are very, very particular in size. They're sized just small enough so that water vapor will go through. Water vapor will go through because water, remember, is pretty small. It's H2O, so hydrogen is really small. So, you've just got this oxygen there, and you get these two little hydrogens. It's kind of like Mickey Mouse, Looks like Mickey Mouse. At least the molecule looks like Mickey Mouse of water. But, of course, it's three-dimensional. But anyway, we're getting away from the point here. So, and the larger molecules of oxygen, which is O2, and then nitrogen, which is N2, which has this powerful triple bond. Anyway, So the holes will keep out air. Air cannot penetrate Tyvek, but water vapor can. And one of the really interesting things about this is that, so when I first heard this, I literally did not believe it. I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. You can't allow water vapor to pass through something, but not air, you know? But, so I actually, my car, it's a convertible, and it's got a, so for many years, I mean, I fixed it about a year ago now, but for many years, the top on it was all messed up. So I bought a rain cover for it, because buying a rain cover for your car is cheaper than buying a new car. And, I mean, buying a new top for your car. So I had this rain cover on it, and it said, hydrophobic, it'll allow vapor to pass through, and it won't, but it won't let liquid water pass through. And I bought it, because it was a rain cover. But I thought that the whole thing about allowing water vapor to pass through was total hogwash. But I'll tell you, man, it kept my car super dry. It could have been raining like all weekend, I would get out in my car and it would be totally dry. I was like, this is amazing. So I started to think it actually does work. And it's really interesting, actually, because the fact that it's hydrophobic, that polyethylene is so hydrophobic, is why the water vapor will pass through. It's the other thing is it doesn't let liquid water through, only water vapor. And that's... So the reason for this is, so if you've got this little hole in something, you've got these little molecules that are going boop, 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 boop. The fact that it's hydrophobic means that when the molecule hits the wall of the material, it doesn't actually lose any energy. So the fact that it's hydrophobic means that it can bounce all the way through. And this same kind of technology was used for gas diffusion in uranium enrichment, which is pretty interesting. That's the way they used to enrich uranium before they figured out the whole spinning it. I mean, nowadays uranium is enriched with not turbines. What do they call those things? Those little spinny things. Centrifuges. Anyway, okay, so... But I digress. So, back to the building materials. Okay, so, polyethylene. Okay, so, putting Tyvek over your house. And they do it to prevent, water from getting in. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Unfortunately, I've read something recently that makes me question its usefulness. Because... So, Tyvek actually breaks down. And I've heard... so it started on some message board where this guy was talking about, I've been hanging drywall for 30 years, and every time I open up a house and I see that there's Tyvek underneath, it's all worn up. It's all worn up to bits. And I heard this, I would see people talk about this on message forums enough, and I was like, I think there might be something to that. So I looked it up, and polyethylene, sure enough, does break down, especially under ultraviolet light. And probably, I mean, if you drive by a construction site, it seems like everything they build nowadays, they have these boards of oriented strand board, OSB, and you can see that because it's so much lighter than plywood, and it's got these little, some people call it chipboard because it's got these little chips embedded in it. And then on top of the OSB, they've got a layer of Tyvek. It seems like every time I drive past a construction site, that's what I see. And, yeah. So what I'm saying is they keep the Tyvek on a long time before they put the siding on. That's probably not good for it. Now, the people at DuPont, they say that they add a whole bunch of sunscreen to it, basically. It's plastic, so you can actually mix the active ingredient from sunscreen in through the whole plastic. So I don't know, modern Tyvek might be better than the old Tyvek, but honestly, I've heard so many stories about it, I'm not sure that I would use it if I were building my own house. And, there are other problems with it. I mean, another problem is you're going to put this Tyvek in front of either OSB, which, honestly, I've seen OSB break down so much because of water infiltration. It doesn't hold up at all. I wouldn't use OSB, I'd use plywood. Anyway, you're going to put it in front of OSB or plywood. I mean, or you could use some other type of sheeting material, but anyway, almost everything is either OSB or plywood. And plywood, and both of those, OSB and plywood, are like completely impermeable to vapor. So it's probably not going to really help things dry out that much. I was thinking it might help it dry out if, rather than using OSB or plywood, if you were to just take like a sort of a lattice, but instead of but having everything at three angles, triangles, because triangles are the strongest shape. That's an interesting thing, although I couldn't actually build a house using triangular board sheeting like this because it would never pass inspection. To pass inspection, it would have to be OSB or plywood or a normal, just old-fashioned wood. But anyway, so that's one of the problems with Tyvek, is it probably doesn't actually dry things out because you're putting it in front of plywood. Another problem, see, some of the things I always wonder about with Housewrap. How do you attach the Housewrap? You've got staples, and, well, if you've got staples in it to attach, that means that there's a hole in it. And if there's a hole in it, then water could just go through the hole. So that's not good. But, they sell these little plastic caps you can put in front of the staple holes, but I don't know. I'm skeptical because I feel like water could just get behind the plastic cap, Anyway. So, yeah, that's one of the problems. Also, of course, seams. On construction sites, the seams are always taped up with, special construction tape. And, tape, the construction tape probably has some pretty good adhesives on it. But I feel like adhesives, over the long haul, adhesives will always break down. Just always. Anyway, but, okay, so that's my thought on Tyvek. Now, it might be... So, one of the reasons that it breaks down is that, in addition to the ultraviolet light thing, the photo degradation, in addition to that, bacteria will break it down. So, and the interesting thing is that it synergizes. So if bacteria has broken up these long chains of polyethylene, so you've got all these little ethylenes that are connected to each other, so the ultraviolet light will break up all of these polyethylenes into smaller chains, basically. And having smaller chains like that allows the bacteria to eat it up more easily. So, I don't know, it's possible that it would last longer. The modern stuff that they add the sunscreen to. I don't know. Only time will tell, really. So other types of Housewrap, like polypropylene. Polypropylene might do a better job of resisting microbial attack, because polypropylene, the plastic, actually lasts longer in the environment. I feel like it lasts longer in the environment. Everybody talks about how it's a bad thing. It's like, oh, it takes forever to break down. Yeah, but if it takes forever to break down, that's kind of good for your house. Because it means your house will last a long time. And it'll be low maintenance. So anyway, that's basically my thoughts on building materials. Of course, it's a very big subject. But anyway, in case, again, you think I'm an idiot, I am not a construction worker, I'm not a materials specialist. But, shoot me an email, ned@nedrocks.org. And, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.